made some profound point, and then like, wait a minute, relax. Anything else that you would challenge on what I said?
I completely agree, because fundamentally you both said exactly what I was thinking anyway, in the sense that to claim that the universe requires a cause, we can analyze what that cause might be, is actually the reasonable thing to say. The unreasonable thing to say is actually this universe doesn't require an explanation, that it came from nothing. And now that's unreasonable. So which of those two would be the extraordinary claim? The extraordinary claim would be the universe from nothing. And this is the position, unfortunately, that atheists will find themselves in if they persist with that perspective. So I completely agree, 100%. So that's a question that sometimes is put forward because it was said famously by Carl Sagan, as Brother Sabor said, but actually doesn't hold any weight when actually discussed.
Yeah. See, that's one thing I wanted to do here. This is where I spoke about the factory reset. Atheists use these cliches all the time. And they're tired, they're old, they're finished. This is the whole reality, what we're trying to do here. We're trying to say, look, you can't get away with this anymore. You've got away with it for a long time. You know, I've had Muslims telling me they were scared. They didn't mind debating Christians because they've been watching Ahmadiyya and all of this kind of stuff, yeah? But when an atheist come, they were scared. Well, alhamdulillah, they said, now we're watching the EFDR videos and that. We're not afraid anymore. We know how to deal with them now. We know how to start with belief flex straight away. So all of a sudden they're on the back foot. You know, it's not about evidence anymore now. It's about belief and it's about rationale and reason. And like, for example, I did that talk with the brother. I don't know if you've seen it, Sabor, the blind spot of science, with the Eton brother from, the brother from Eton, 18-year-old kid, looked about 26, right? And he came to speak to Ahmadiyya, but I kind of grabbed a hold of him. And his conclusion was this: your reasons for believing in a creator are 100% logical. Wow. Yeah, because it went through everything, and he said, I can't dispute any of it. And he came from a proper philosophical, it was a proper philosophical battle. But the reality was,
he was studying philosophy, and his name Sebastian. His name was. He was studying philosophy.
Sebastian. Yeah, really top lad.
Yeah, nice guy.
So when someone says that to you, your reasons for believing is 100% logical. That's saying your belief is 100% logical. And that's what Muslims need to learn, that the belief in a creator is 100% logic. We can move on to Allah, we can move on to perceptions, we can move on to the Prophet ﷺ, we can move on to the Quran, you can move on to all of these things. But the foundation of a creator kills it. Yeah. And then when we have, like, for example, the Ricky Gervais argument, like I said, there's 3,000 gods, you believe in one, I believe in one less God than you, as if that's a mic drop moment also. No, the reality is this: we don't just dismiss the other gods because we don't like them. We don't dismiss them because we weren't born in those particular countries. So I don't dismiss Ganesh and Vishnu and all that stuff because I wasn't born in India. In fact, I look at the rational rhyme and reason for it. I don't get it. So when you go through this, you can easily throw out Thor, throw out Zeus, throw out what does Dawkins say? Someone on Mount Juju or whatever it may be. You can throw all of this away, but you're left with a creator, alhamdulillah. And then you have to move on to, has this creator communicated with us? And then when you look at people who claim to have communication from this creator, then you test their claims, then you determine their claims are true. Then you'll get the Allah, 99 attributes, all of these kind of things from that point. But when you first started, we just found it, we're just dealing with the creator right now, inshallah. So Sabor, over to you. Evolution, man, that's the knockout blow. The atheists think this is ace card, man.
Yeah, but
they got us.
Yeah. I think just before that, I think some of the points that you've said, they're really profound because, even from a philosophical perspective, sometimes we can get lost in these very abstract arguments. But when you bring it down to these basic units that you make up the rest of the philosophical arguments from, that's where the atheist loses, right? And it's on these basic points that, okay, so how is it that the belief in a creator is not 100% logical? How is that illogical? How is it irrational? When you make it when you get your conversation down to this fine, precise sort of narrative that, look, this is what we're trying to say. It's very hard for a rational atheist to deny it unless they just want to, they just want to do a bit of showboating and stuff. So I'm really glad this, what's his name, Sebastian guy, he was willing to admit that, because I think, even it's interesting. I saw a debate between John Lennox, who's a Oxford professor, and Richard Dawkins. It's a very famous debate online. And it's very interesting because Dawkins says something which wouldn't normally say, and something which I haven't really found in other works of his or lectures. When John Lennox was talking about the universe and the universe being, intricately designed and the order and this type of thing, Dawkins said the idea, the general idea that there's a creator, a deistic creator, meaning a creator that created the universe but left it to run on its own, right? Not a creator that intervenes in the laws of nature, but just like a deistic creator. He says this is something that you can make a rational, respectable case for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's not something I would accept, but the idea that God, the creator of this entire universe with all of his stars and his planets and everything, would come down to earth and die on a cross is petty. Yeah. So you see, a lot of the dialogue, narratives that come out from new atheists, they don't just come out from a perspective that God is irrational. They also have religion intertwined, because some of the things that they found hard to believe as Christians, they just see those as the concepts of God, and they're not willing to accept that. Some of them not willing to accept that those concepts are totally independent from the general belief in God. So you can believe in God but not believe in religion. These are two different things, right?
Yeah,
So this is sorry?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that's what we have to do.
And this is a very interesting segue into Darwin's belief, right? So Darwin was a deist, right? He was somebody who believed that God created the world and left it to be. God was like an absent landlord, right? From his perspective, that God didn't physically intervene and do these things. Now, what's very interesting is if you look at the belief of Dawkins and co, and you look at the belief of Darwin, you see that Darwin would not have agreed with Richard Dawkins and the new atheists at all, right? Because the way they see God is, it's irrational, it's this, it's that. The thing with him is he believed in a God when he published his theory in 1858 at the Royal Society, a year before he published it publicly. He explicitly believed in God. And this is according to his biographers, and there's lots of evidence for this. There's a book called Darwin and God by Nick Spencer, where he goes over this in a lot of detail, right? When he published his book and then he published his other works, he still believed in God. His belief in God was rattled by the problem of evil, right? Which is a good segue into what Brother Imran's going to be speaking about. He could not understand how a benevolent, loving God could allow evil and suffering, right? And his son died at the age of 2. His daughter died at the age of 10. He suffered very severe health issues throughout his life, for which he had to get various types of treatment, which didn't really work. So he had this grinding problem. Why does God allow evil things to happen? So in the last decade of his life, he became an agnostic. However, he still said, in my wildest fluctuations, I was never an atheist from the perspective of denying God's existence. Now, online, you're going to find the exact opposite. You're going to find atheists saying, evolution undermines God. Darwin showed there's no God. We know evolution is true, therefore there's no God. This isn't by accident. This is by design, right? So if you look at the most popular atheist book in the world, it's The God Delusion. The God Delusion is central argument, and it's called the central argument. You find it in the middle of the book somewhere, right? Around page 150 something. And the central argument of the book is essentially that Darwinism has gotten rid of design. That's the essential argument. And then the argument goes on to, just like Darwinism got rid of biological design, a future physical theory can get rid of physical design in the universe, and God therefore most likely doesn't exist. So what's interesting is that if Charles Darwin was reading The God Delusion, he would have been embarrassed, because he would have said, this is not what I said. I explicitly said, you can believe in my theory and believe in God. In fact, he said you can believe my theory and not only be a deist, you can also be a theist. You can also believe in revelation. You can also believe, not revelation, you can also believe in a personal creator, which is theism, and believe in God, right? He explicitly said this, right? So what's interesting is in an interview between Richard Dawkins and Lawrence Krauss, which is on YouTube, by the way, and I've made a video on this. Dawkins says, you can believe in God and evolution. However, because there's a public perception that if you believe in God, then the belief in evolution is incompatible and evolution has undermined God, and it's much easier to show the evidence of evolution. That's why I use evolution, so then I can get people to become atheists. So he openly said this, right? And he's clearly showing that he knows evolution doesn't undermine God, but he's using people's ignorance against them to bring them to atheism, right? So I think these things are very important to talk about. And later on, we can talk about the philosophy of science and why the philosophy of science shows that science isn't the be-all and the end-all and the main root of knowledge and doesn't undermine God. However, without getting into any of that philosophical realm, we know that the new atheists lie to people. In fact, I just want to give one last authority here, right? The number one authority in the world when it comes to biological evolution is Michael Ruse. You will find his books published all over the world by mainstream universities. He's an atheist, and he says about the God delusion that it makes me embarrassed to be an atheist. This book makes me embarrassed to be an atheist, right? Now, why? Because that book is saying essentially evolution undermines God, when any biologist, any philosopher of biology, any philosopher of science worth their salt knows evolution, just like any other scientific theory like string theory, cannot undermine the existence of the divine. Yeah. So what we want to do today is, we may disagree with the atheist. The atheist may jump on, we may agree or disagree, but something I want any atheist to join, to first off agree on, is the new atheist narrative, which is global, right? Which is very hard to uncover, which is very hard to put back in the box, is based on a flat out lie, right? And that's the first thing I want any atheist who's joining me to at least recognize, and let's speak about that first, because this is an elephant in the room which has to be dealt with.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, factory reset them, take them back to all these things that they've built up thinking they have some kind of rationale and reason behind. We have to demonstrate that they don't have this. Yeah. And this is the point. We need to arm the Muslims with disinformation. So when they come up against an atheist, they know how to take them down in a nice way, or intellectually, should I say. I mean, I usually like to take the rug from the atheist within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, the rationale, reason, and logic is out the window. They're preaching to me. they're making all sorts of claims because the rationale has left the building. All right. So so would you say that's your main introduction to the idea that evolution doesn't undermine the existence of a creator?
Yeah, I would say that's.
Why would you say that? What would you say is it? What is it? Okay, let me put it this way. What does Dawkins say about evolution that implies that if evolution occurred the way they claim it does, from a common ancestor and all this business, why doesn't that undermine the existence of a creator? I mean, I understand to a point that evolution is the response